back. Let's wrap up June. I ended up going away in June for a little, I just hadn't seen my kids in a long time, or my grandbabies in a long time, almost 2 years. And it was time. And so I flew down to Tennessee and got to spend about 10 days with them, and had a wonderful time. And I will try to share some pictures and do that kind of stuff maybe at the end of the video. But this is probably the first video that I have put up on the channel in about 2.5 weeks. So have a lot to catch up on, on your channels, and I can't wait to do that. But for right now, what I want to do is just wrap up the rest of what I read in June. And yeah, let's jump in. Let's get to it. Today's tea is Yogi brand kombucha green, and I'll put a picture of it up. It is my absolute favorite green tea. I've been drinking it a lot lately. In fact, I think I was sipping it in one of my other videos too. Okay, so I have already wrapped up A Place on Earth by Wendell Berry, The Foxwife by Yangtze Chu, Joyful by Roddy. I don't know. I can't remember for sure. Picture. A Page Marked for Murder by Lauren Elliott, and Address Unknown by Catherine Cressman Taylor. So I'm not going to go back over those. So I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 to go over. So we better get to it. Okay, how do I want to do this? Do I want to tell you all the books and then tell you what they fit into? Sure, let's do that. Okay, so the first book is Doomsday, the Doomsday book by Connie Willis. I did own this book, but I have sent it off to the used bookstore. And so I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And I enjoyed the characterization. I enjoyed the time travel and the honesty about the difficulties that going back in time presents. I enjoyed one of the main protagonists in the present day, just his determination to bring the one that had gone back in time back to the present, to not leave her in the past because of some things that happen. It is a book of 2 plagues, and I was not sure that I was going to like this book, but the way that it is done and the way that things are handled in the book was just wonderful. I really, really liked it. And I didn't find it depressing. I didn't find it unhopeful. I just thought she did such a great job with being able to grapple with these difficult things that are happening as a result of this unknown sickness, both in the past and in the present. So one of our characters travels back to the 14th century, and of course that's the time of the Black Plague. And so she is supposed to be going back like before it hits. And then what happens is, in present day, there ends up being a plague that shuts everything down, and as plagues do, and everybody is in quarantine and isolation and all of this, and as a result, our character that has gone back to the past does not come forward in enough time to not be in the past when the Black Plague begins to happen, to occur. And so it's just a race. It's a race to find out if they can bring her out of that without bringing anything forward to the present time, wrestling with your own morality and your own mortality. And it was so good. I really enjoyed it. Felt it lingered just a little too long. I think it could have been a little shorter and we would have enjoyed it just as much. And so that, and then just a couple of things that content-wise were just not things that I felt were necessary in there. There's a character in the present day that's a little bit of a Don Juan, you know, I mean, he plays it up. Let's put it that way. Okay, next I read Jungle Tales of Tarzan by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I buddy read this with Dave and Olive from Book Blather, as I have all of the Tarzan that I have read so far. I think there are like 23 books in the series. This was number 6, and it was short vignettes of Tarzan before Jane, but not when he was a baby. So we kind of, in the first Tarzan book, we have him as a baby, and then it kind of time jumps, and we get him then as a young teenager. But we kind of miss those intervening years. This was kind of fun. It just kind of went back, and we got to see Tarzan's playful side. We got to see some of his friends within the tribe of Kerchak, and then also just the way that he establishes his persona as the king of the jungle, the mighty white hairless ape man of the jungle. And I find all of these books to just be candy for me. They're just really fun, light reads. Dave said this was his least favorite. I think that if I'm taking the stories on individual basis rather than lumping them all together, I think that there were some that I liked just as well as the stories from the other books. And then if I lump them all together, I would say that we don't have time to really get to know any of the other characters in the short stories, because that's what they are. They're short stories. So it was still really good. I still really enjoyed it. I happened to have a partially illustrated version of it, and so that was really fun to be able to send Dave little messages to show him what I was seeing as I was reading. I reread Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 2 in the Mistborn trilogy, the original Mistborn trilogy. And I just really love being back with all of these characters. I think they're wonderful. This will always be a favorite Sanderson trilogy because it was one of my first. The thought processes, the political side of things, the idea of the magic and how it works and what it needs to do in order to combine just right, and what happens when it doesn't combine. Plus, there are some relationships that in the first book I really like. And in this book, they just kind of break down a little bit, and I get to see almost the dark underbelly of those relationships in a way. And then I also get to cheer for the ones that remain integrous and strong. And so it's just been a really fun journey so far. And I will be continuing with Mist Along. Then I read Chilled to the Cone. This is a cozy mystery by Ellie Alexander, and it was just fun. That's what all of the cozy mysteries are that I read. That's the reason why I read them, is I just want something, you know, bite-sized basically to chomp on so that I can have a little reprieve from some of the bigger, some of the heavier, some of the longer things that I am reading. Letter Delivery is the 4th book, I think, in CJ Archer's Glass Library series. And this is also a type of cozy mystery. It's an alternative London in the early 1900s, and I think it's like 1922 or something like that. We have a main character who is discovering that she has a magic, and we have another main character who knows he is magical but does not want to advertise that, and there are reasons for it. And so far, there's no romantic relationship. They like each other, but there's not like any kind of romantic relationship there. They're just good friends. And that's the way that they are all working, is as good friends. Then I read Riders of the Purple Sage by Zane Grey. This was for June on the Range, as well as just a tribute to my grandpa. And I knew that he really loved Zane Grey when I was growing up. I never read any of them, and then I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I heard Emma at Bookish Princess talk about it, and I thought, well, if she liked it, then there's a chance that I will too. So it was a tribute to Grandpa. It was because of June on the Range, and it was recommended by Emma. I had a good time reading this. I buddy read it with Penny and with Sandra and Amy from Hearthridge. And I had so much fun talking about this with these women. And we even at one point had a little conspiracy theory going on. I can't say that I'll ever pick up another Zane Grey. I think that he wrote, I saw a review on this. This was funny. I saw a review that said this should be called Writers of the Purple Prose rather than Writers of the Purple Sage. So Zane Grey has a very flowery, very emotive, evocative kind of writing of the landscape of Utah. And it's pretty to a point. And then it starts to kind of get a little too much sometimes. I think that the scenery and the landscape is almost a character in and of itself. And it is also a way of, because the characters don't show much of what they're thinking or what they're feeling or what their motives are, the landscape kind of reflects that for you. And so I liked it, but I didn't love it. And there were things about it that really bugged me, and things about it that I thought were delightful. So in the end, it probably got about, I don't know, 79-80% from me. And yeah, I don't think I'll be reading any more Westerns. I think that was my one and done. Then I read Dragonfruit, and this is a new book, and I want to say that it is by Makaia or Makaia Lucier. I'm not sure. This story was a little bit of a surprise for me. Loved the cover. Loved the cover. And I thought that it was probably going to be angsty YA and that I would probably read a few chapters and put it down and not finish it. And that was not the case. I actually really liked this. We are with an orphan in a world where dragons are vicious. They are all water-based dragons. They all live in the seas, and they come onto land to lay their eggs, and their eggs are called dragonfruit. And they're called that because their eggs have a special power, a special ability for humanity. And so there is something that happens when our main character is a little girl that kind of molds and shapes the rest of her life. And at the point where we catch up with her, I think she's 16, and she has to throw in her lot with a crew of pirates, so to speak, ends up back at her home country and finds that she really does have true friends that are people that will stand by her. And some other things happen in there that are just absolutely endearing, and I just really enjoyed this book. I thought it was wonderful. Another cozy mystery in the Emily Dickinson series that I started last month, and that is called I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died. And that's, again, another famous line from an Emily Dickinson poem. These are by Amanda Flower, and I enjoyed the first one more. And that is just simply because Emily in this one felt a little bit more caricaturized than an actual person. And so I didn't like her as much in this one, but I still enjoyed the mystery part of it. I still enjoyed her maid, and I thought that it was a good follow-up. It just wasn't as good as the first one, which is often the case with book 2. Then I read James by Percival Everett. This is a Huckleberry Finn retelling. You probably are hearing a lot about this. This is his brand new book. I picked it up because my library had it and it was available, and also because I heard Shelley Swearingen talk about this, and his other book that came out not long ago, The Trees, I tried to read and I just couldn't do it, but this one I could do. So not only is this just so funny, it is uplifting, and it is a paradigm shift. He did such a wonderful job. It has some content things in it that I wish weren't there, but it is all of the bone structure of the Huckleberry Finn tale with a much more positive light on the human race. And it was just masterfully written, and just really am thankful to have read it. I read Blue Star, The Blue Star by Toni Earley. This is a sequel to Jim the Boy. And Penny was gonna read it, and I had it, and so I read it with her. And I really love Jim the Boy. And Jim the Boy reminds me of my childhood, of stories that my grandpa told me about his childhood, and just so many wonderful things. All of the uncles being around all the time, and just country life, and having a mama that is not a pushover, and it was just really great. And then in this one, Jim is about to graduate from high school. We get his set of friends that are with him and around him all the time. And we see that he is kind of on the verge of becoming a man and falling in love and finding out what true friendship really is, and learning to stand up for things that he needs to stand up for. I didn't like this one near as much as Jim the Boy. The end of this book, the end of the story, is really what did it for me and what made the whole book. And we just got to see some character growth in Jim, and we got to see some character growth in his love interest. It turned out really beautifully. Then I read The Seventh Voyage. So this is a graphic novel, and I picked this up because I have read Stanislaw Lem before. But this cover I just thought was so wonderful, and I had not read this particular story by Stanislaw Lem, and this is an adaptation of that story by John Muth and illustrated by John Muth. And the illustrations in here are absolutely fabulous. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to do them justice, but it is the story of Titchy, and Titchy is on a mission. Something goes wrong, and something else outside of what's going wrong here also happens, and he begins to have his past and present selves appearing and cohabitating with him on the space station. And he has a mission that he needs to finish. And in order to do that, he has got to get a grip on all of these past and future and present self that are arguing, that don't seem to be able to get along, that are a result of this occurrence on the space station, and he needs to get to his destination if he's going to survive. And it was just a fascinating thought experiment, and beautifully, like I said, just absolutely beautifully illustrated by John Muth. And here's like all the past and present selves. It was just really great. It was funny. I really liked it. So I would highly recommend this one if you haven't read it. I also read Dissolution by CJ Sansom. It was a reread for me because I want to go on in the Matthew Shardlake series, and I've only ever read the first two. I told my daughter when I was talking about it that it is what I hoped for when I was reading Umberto Eco's Name of the Rose. And Name of the Rose was just way too graphic, violent, sexual for me. There were parts of it I really enjoyed, but with Dissolution, it deals with a lot of the same things from Name of the Rose. This one is in Cromwell's England in the time of King Henry and Thomas Cromwell. And the main character is Matthew Shardlake. And he is kind of an investigator. His character is the reason why I love Dissolution and the reason why I love this series from CJ Sansom. At least the first two. That's the reason why I really liked them. It's a little darker, a little heavier. It deals with a few things that I wouldn't normally want to read about. But because of the way that it is dealt with and because of the integrity of Shardlake, I just really, really liked it. And I'm so glad that I reread it, and I'm really excited to move on. I also read Fiddler's Gun by A.S. Peterson. This is the first one in the duology. The second one is right here, Fiddlers Green. And we are with a daughter who is daughter number 13 to a family that the father really wanted a son. And the mother decides to name her Phineas as a way of trying to convince the father that he has a son. But what they do is, because he already has too many daughters, they drop her off at a convent and let her be raised by the nuns. And some things occur when she is almost 18 that make her have to run away and take on the persona of a boy. About halfway through, this book broke my heart because my favorite character was no longer there. And I didn't know if I wanted to continue reading because I was so sad that my favorite character wasn't there any longer. I really, really like this book. Now, I will say this is put out by Rabbit Room Press. This is the brother of Andrew Peterson. At the beginning, I was unsure if I was going to like this because it felt a little bit preachy. But that does not stay. It doesn't linger through the book. I'm really looking forward to moving on to Fiddler's Green. I think Fiddler's Green is going to end up being the icing on the cake for this. And this, if I fall in love with this duology, it's going to be because of that book, I think. I'm going to try to say this. Kamogawa, Food Detectives. And this I thought was going to be a cozy mystery. It is not really that. It literally is about a food detective. So the mysteries in this are somebody has a loved one who's passing away, and they really want to be able to emulate or recreate their recipe for this. Or on their honeymoon, they had this one dish and it's haunted them ever since, and they want to know how to make it, or they want to know, you know, what this secret ingredient is that they never seem to be able to recreate it. And so they come to this father-daughter team. There's a cat also, but the cat is kind of superfluous. He doesn't really do much other than just kind of respond to one of the clients. The daughter is like, she greets the clients and she kind of gets the story, but what's really strange is that then the dad sits down and talks to them as well. I liked this book, but it just was not anything like I was expecting. It felt like a translated fiction in the fact that I felt like I was missing something that maybe had been implied in the original text that was not being implied in the translation. We found out what needed to happen, and then the next scene, we're seeing the client come back and them being presented with the food, them responding to whether it was correct or not, and then hearing kind of the backstory and clearing up of some of the mystery. And so we didn't follow him throughout the travels to find these things out. We just kind of heard about them, and we heard about why. And so it just didn't feel very full, and it didn't feel very satisfying. I don't think that she came up, or he, I don't know if it's a man or a woman that wrote it, but I don't think they came up with the right recipe for what they were trying to do. But I still enjoyed it. That is all of my books that I read. Let me tell you. Okay, so this is currently my bingo board. You can see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. And I still have a few days left in June, so I might be able to finish another book or two. This one is Second Chance, and this was my Emily Dickinson book. I heard a fly buzz when I died. And so because it was my second book in that series, second book by that author, I put her there. And then this one was Dragonfruit, and this is Judge a Book by its cover. And as I showed you, Dragonfruit is beautiful. So then I had over 500 pages. That's Well of Ascension. This one is Escapism. This was Fiddlers Green. And I put it there not because I was escaping, but because Finn was escaping. So that was that one. And then Blue Star I put on friendship, because in this book in particular, we get Jim's friends, and it does revolve, the story does revolve a lot around friendship and his friends. And so then I have the Doomsday book for sci-fi fantasy. I have Foxwife for Buzzy book. Dissolution went on reread. Address Unknown was a new to me author. Riders of the Purple Sage was mentioned in another book. The book that it was mentioned in, or that Zane Grey was mentioned in, was The Blue Star. And so I actually had Riders up here, and I moved it down because of that. The Dead Letter, the Cone, the Chilled to the Cone was for Cozy Mystery, and James was for booktube recommendation. Seventh Voyage was for graphic novel or manga. Dead Letter Delivery was for book in a series. Joyful by the cookbook by Shetty was for the Square Joyful. And then library book was A Place on Earth by Wendell Berry. Keep putting off, I put Tarzan's Jungle Tales there because Dave and I had planned on reading that a few months ago, and we kept putting it off. So that one went there, and that is all of them. Then my free space here in the middle. Oh, Food Detectives. The Kamogawa Food Detectives is for hot cover, and it's because there's steam rising from the bowl of ramen. So, okay, so that's the summer book bingo so far. Big book summer books, that is Well of Ascension by Sanderson, Doomsday by Connie Willis, the Doomsday book by Connie Willis, Dissolution by CJ Sansom, and Foxwife by Yang-C Chu. Those are all over 400 pages. They count for big book summer, and so those are my big book summer books so far. Historical fiction readathon that Shelley Swearingen was doing in the month of June. I read Fiddler's Gun. That was set in the American Revolution in the American South mainly. The Blue Star was set in what felt like, and I don't know that they ever really said this, but it felt like Virginia or maybe West Virginia, somewhere in there. That's what it felt like to me. But it's between World War I and World War II. Right at the onset of World War II is when our book is ending. So Dissolution is Cromwell's England, like I said. James was set in the pre-Civil War of America, antebellum South kind of setting. I Heard a Fly Buzz was 19th century United States. Dead Letter Delivery is an alternate early 20th century England or Britain. Riders of the Purple Sage was early 20th, late 19th century United States. And Tarzan, the Jungle Tales of Tarzan, were pre-colonial Africa. And the Doomsday book was 14th century Britain and future Britain. And then Address Unknown was World War II, United States and Germany. And The Foxwife was 1908 Manchuria. And A Place on Earth was World War II, Port William, Kentucky. So now you know all the readathons, all of the events that my books fit into, as well as what books I read and what I thought about them. And I will be back very soon. I have a little bit of a book haul because I was on that trip and I did go book shopping. And so I do have a little bit of a book haul. And then what else? I'll talk to you a little bit about what my plans are for July. And that's everything. That's everything. Let's wrap it up. It's been long enough. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you all had a wonderful June. I would love to know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you again very soon. Bye.